When I was 7 years old, he told me after he killed the minister, and when we went to Panama, he told me that he was a bandit.
Juan Pablo Escobar, who now goes by the name Sebastian Marroquin, was just 16 years old when his father was shot and killed on a rooftop in Medellin, Colombia. But his father was Pablo Escobar, the most wanted man in the world, a drug kingpin who had been hunted by the DEA and Colombian police for nearly 20 years. But after losing his father, what did Juan do about the people who had betrayed him? Let's find out. Pablo Escobar was one of the richest criminals the world had ever seen, making over $140 million in cash every single day. But he didn't get rich by playing fair. He got there by hurting, sometimes even killing, anyone who stood in his way. And sometimes he didn't stop with just one person. He targeted their entire families too. But Escobar wasn't born a villain. He grew up very poor and felt trapped, wanting to escape poverty fast. He started with small crimes, stealing and reselling tombstones. Then he began robbing businesses. But it wasn't long before he discovered that violence brought even more power. Pablo offered protection to shop owners and loaned money. If they didn't cooperate, he beat them up or had them killed. Soon after, he started kidnapping politicians for ransom. And even when families paid up, like in the case of Diego Echeverria, Pablo killed the victim anyway. This hunger for money and power led him to build the Medellin cartel, one of the most powerful and feared drug empires in history. In the 1970s and 80s, his cartel became a major source of cocaine flowing into the US, fueling an addiction crisis. As the DEA and Colombian police closed in, Pablo became more paranoid and even more dangerous. In 1989, he made a horrifying decision. He blew up a passenger plane thinking an enemy politician was on board. The politician canceled at the last minute, but 110 innocent people died. Then in 1993, Pablo planted a massive car bomb targeting Colombia's security chief. The attack missed its target, but 21 innocent people were killed, including children waiting for a school bus. So to the world, Pablo Escobar was a ruthless killer. But to his son, Juan Pablo, he was still just dad. Juan Pablo Escobar was born on February 24, 1977, right when his father was becoming one of the richest and most feared men on earth. But for much of his childhood, Juan had no idea who his father really was. Juan slowly began picking up bits and pieces. The family often had to flee the country after Pablo murdered public figures. But even then, Pablo wrapped his actions in good stories to make them sound less terrifying. Juan was 7 years old when he found out that his dad is a bandit. But to a 7-year-old, hearing the word bandit might mean a petty thief or someone who jaywalks, not a man who orders the death of judges and their families. Despite all this, there was another layer of confusion too. Many poor people in Colombia saw Pablo as a hero, a Robin Hood figure. After all, he had built football fields, restaurants, hospitals, and even entire neighborhoods for the homeless in Medellin. Pablo acted like a big kid himself. He showered Juan and his sister with extravagant gifts, over 30 motorcycles, a private zoo, swimming pools, anything they wanted. The family lived on a luxurious ranch that few could even dream of. But after Pablo's death in 1993, that life vanished overnight. Juan and his sister Manuela and their mother Maria Victoria were suddenly left with nothing, forced to start from scratch in a world that no longer protected them. No matter who your parents are, they shape the way you see the world. If they teach you that violence is okay, you might start to believe it is. That's why many children of drug lords end up becoming part of the same dangerous world their parents built. But Juan Pablo was different. Even though his father was one of the most feared men in the world, Juan never followed in his footsteps. When Juan was just 16 years old, everything changed. His father, Pablo Escobar, was finally caught after spending 16 months on the run. He was shot and killed on the roof of his aunt's house in Medellin. What makes this even more heartbreaking? It was a phone call Pablo made to Juan on December 2nd that allowed the police to track him down. Juan and his mother, Maria Victoria, and sister Manuela were already under police watch when the news came. That was the moment they learned Pablo Escobar was dead. At first, Juan threatened to kill the people who had killed his father, but deep down, he didn't really mean it. In fact, all through his teenage years, Juan had begged his father to stop hurting innocent people. His anger after the death only lasted about 10 minutes. Then reality sank in. His father had chosen this path, and now the whole family would have to live with the consequences.
And he answered me, look, I didn't invent this. They used this against my family, my beloved ones.
For someone who was only 16 years old, Juan Pablo was incredibly wise. Many people expected him to seek revenge on those who had betrayed or killed his father, but in reality, he did nothing. He understood that violence only creates more violence. He saw clearly that his father had died because of all the harm he had caused. Juan didn't want to repeat the same mistakes, but even with that wisdom, life wasn't about to get any easier for him or his family. The moment Pablo Escobar was taken down, everything changed. Juan, his mother Maria, and his sister Manuela lost everything. Rival cartels stole what they could, and the authorities seized the rest. Even though Pablo had barrels of cash hidden underground, they couldn't get to them. The family became poor and homeless overnight. When they tried to flee Colombia, no one would sell them plane tickets. Even the United Nations refused to help. Meanwhile, they faced daily death threats. The family had to live in a hotel and hire bodyguards just to survive. But when their money ran out, they could no longer afford the hotel or the protection. That's when they changed their name and fled to Argentina. From then on, they were known as the Marroquin family. Juan Pablo became Sebastian. Even though none of them had committed any crime, Sebastian was arrested multiple times for money laundering, kidnapping, and blackmail. He hadn't done any of it. The only reason he was arrested was because of who his father had been. In 1999, the whole family was even arrested for Pablo Escobar's crimes. Though they were eventually released, this ordeal took a heavy toll, especially on Manuela, now going by Juana. The stress caused her severe anxiety and depression, to the extent that she has even tried to take her own life. In time, Sebastian managed to rebuild his life. He became an architect and a lecturer, and today he lives and works in Argentina. But he doesn't try to hide from his past. Instead, he speaks openly about what it was like to grow up as the son of Pablo Escobar. And what about revenge? Did Sebastian go after those who betrayed his family? No, he chose a different path. Instead of hatred, he works to seek forgiveness from the families of the people his father hurt. Think about how hard that must be. Imagine having grown up in the shadow of one of the world's most feared criminals and still choosing peace over revenge. That's the kind of strength Sebastian carries. What would you have done in Juan Pablo's shoes? Let us know in the comments. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more real-world stories just like this.